mixed weather today, it seems. Very cloudy at times and then very sunny in different times. And what did I read today? I guess some disturbing news. This one, there was actually video of it, which was kind of, I guess, eyebrow raising in many ways. It dealt with another elderly Asian attack apparently, and it was posted here by the NYPD Crime Stoppers. And they said, wanted in connection to an assault on Monday, March 29th at 11:40 a.m. at 360 West 43rd Street. A female, 65, was approached by an unidentified male who punched and kicked her about the body and made anti-Asian statements. Have info, basically contact them. It seems with this story, they're specifically saying it's a hate crime of a sort just because of what the guy was spewing out, whereas in the other situations, you don't really know. It was just some random guy, for example, just punching whoever they saw. And I guess the really disturbing thing about this video, you can see from the security footage, in the background, the guy's just beating her up and all that. And look at the people inside the building. Apparently, from what I read in the news, that was like a security guard and all that. They're just standing there watching, and then towards the end of it, I don't know what that is, like a manager or something like that, just looks at the lady and starts to close the door. That's disgusting. With that said though, I think this video is the perfect example of my general thoughts overall, where people are asking me, do I really think this Asian hate thing is extremely widespread, for example? In my opinion, I don't think 90% of the population is racist or anything like that. I do believe it's just like a small select individuals that are doing it. But what this video actually shows is what I said before. The biggest issue is people see it, they stand there, they don't do anything about it. There's more good people than bad people in the world. It's just unfortunately, like here, what does it take for people to actually do something and not like in this case, just stand there? With that said, this other one I read basically had like a video which was kind of powerful, I guess you can say in many ways. It says here, Asian American official shows his military scars during meeting, asks, is this patriot enough? So apparently the person served in the US Army for many years, and he's basically experienced, I guess you could say, things like prejudice, and he's speaking out against all the increase in Asian hate and crimes and so forth. I guess kind of like the story previously. But what was interesting was the way he kind of expressed himself, where a lot of people who prejudge him saying, I guess in this case, he's not American enough. He shows like his scars and all that to prove it. It's kind of powerful in my opinion.
I went to US Army to serve 20 years, active duty, 24/7. You know, I have put up with a lot of shit in silence. Excuse me the language. Too afraid to speak out, fearing more abuse and discrimination. Don't get me wrong, people love me in this community, I love them too. But there are some ignorant people that will come up to me and say that I don't look American or patriotic enough. Now that really gets my goat. People question my patriotism, that I don't look American enough, they could not get over this face. I want to show you something. I want to tell you, because I'm not afraid. I don't have to live in fear, intimidation, or insults. Here is my proof. This is sustained through my service in the US military. Now, is this patriot enough? But you know, prejudice is hate. And that hate, it can be changed. We are human. You know, we need to be kinder, gentler to one another, because we are all the same. We are one human being on this earth.
So will stuff like that actually help to change people's perspectives? I personally think it would. It's just more of that stuff needs to go out. As I mentioned before, I mean, honestly, even for my own life, stuff like this has been happening all the time in terms of people being stereotyped and stuff in that way. I think the only difference is there's more attention to it at the moment. And that's true for any type of discrimination or prejudice. Doesn't matter what the topic is. If the mass majority takes the time, for example, to actually look into it, as opposed to just basing things on, let's say, fear and stereotype, everything would be better, in my opinion. And I guess the other thing I read that was kind of interesting, with drones and remote ID and stuff happening in the US, apparently people are going to challenge it in court. A petition filed before the nation's second highest court seeks judicial review of the FAA regulation governing remote identification of unmanned aircraft. Any ruling that strikes down some or all of the FAR Part 89 could have far-reaching implications. So for those who don't know, just quickly, in the US, a drone, for example, that is over 250 grams, even if it's a toy, they're basically trying to request that they all have things like this remote identification so people can keep track of where they are. Again, even if it's a toy or a kid flying, for example, like around a park or something like that, around a tree. And who's bringing up this case? It says the new case brought by Tyler Brennan, CEO of Race Day Quads and his company, could have more disruptive and lasting effects depending on the court's ultimate decision. The FAA has been under pressure from law enforcement and agencies seeking to mitigate the potential threat of malicious drone operators and the somewhat routine misuse of unmanned aircraft. So that's basically what you hear a lot usually on the news. Basically stories of people using, let's say, a drone in a bad way, so you need to track them in many cases. But the argument is the law, the way it's written, is so broad that, again, it affects virtually everything, even a toy. It says here, Brennan, the plaintiff and hobby shop owner, challenging the FAA's imposition of regulatory requirements that would force FPV flyers to attach approved broadcast modules to drones flown outside of designated areas starting in 2023. Typically home-built, FPV drones are too small to easily accommodate the broadcast module, Brennan said, and he expects most FAA-recognized identification areas will be granted to operators or traditional RC model aircraft operated by the Academy of Model Aeronautics, and those fields are generally unsuitable for the kind of flying FPV pilots prefer. Obstacle avoidance is part of what makes FPV fun and unwelcoming to FPV for much the same reason. So that's a clear distinction between how people fly this, and I think that's an example of what I would say is cultural ignorance. Because I guess just like with things like the racism examples and stereotype, people just see one thing, so they'll automatically categorize it in a certain way. You hear drones nowadays, I guarantee the mass majority will think like a phantom drone or something like that. They don't think, for example, an FPV flyer. Imagine flying like a really tiny drone around trees and stuff, like that's the thrill of it. Let's see if you can get between this obstacle. People don't see that, and that's how this law affects everyone, even people like that as well. I know from my personal example, just in terms of like say tech and drones, in terms of people stereotyping you in that way, I still remember that one incident I told you guys about before, where there was a lady so against drones. Like you talk about it, oh man, those noisy things, and they can like spy on you and all that, it disrupts everything around them. The second she saw the footage I took of the beaver, man, she was looking at it, she was hugging it like closer to herself, like so adored with it. Then afterwards her perspective completely changed in terms of what a person uses, like just say a drone for. So ultimately in the end, people just need to be more exposed in terms of how people are using this and where. To me, it doesn't matter if it's a topic about, let's just say, people of a specific ethnicity who say they are being prejudged and all that. People using tech, saying people are being unfair to them. If you don't understand a certain topic, then in my opinion, the best thing to do is to ask and to learn more about it. I think that's all you could really ask for, as opposed to just basing things on a stereotype. Holy dispute. Alright, see you guys later.